Thank you for watching or listening to another Tennis Chatter. I am Ro Klein and I'm here with my mom,
Debbie Pachel.
And today we are talking about linesman versus technology. So for those who don't know, in tennis, they always use linesman. There's not just is it umpire or what is it called? Chair ump, who sits up there. Because they can't see, the back of the courts when people are serving in the lines. So there's always been linesmen. And I don't know when they introduced Hawkeye, because back in the day you couldn't challenge. My mom's looking up now. But back in the day you couldn't challenge it, and when they introduced Hawkeye, now players get 3 challenges per set and another one if it goes into a tiebreaker. And let's say they challenge the call and they get the call right and it's overturned, they don't lose the challenge. So Hawkeye was introduced in that way. But then starting in the pandemic, because they were already trying to have less ball kids on the court, they wanted less linesmen. So they started this new type of technology where I don't know if it's technically also Hawkeye, but they're able to see every single call is like someone from a booth digitally. And so that way every single call is right accurate, because always with linesmen, it's not 100% accurate, but this way it's always accurate. But not every single tournament uses this technology. Every single tournament has at least Hawkeye, but not every single tournament, is totally just this type of technology. There's still some linesmen, such as Wimbledon right now. They still use linesmen, and we're only a week into, not a whole week until Wimbledon, but pretty much a week into Wimbledon. And we've been noticing that a lot of players have been challenging calls a lot, and they've been getting these challenges wrong. And it's probably because they're so used to the system just saying it's right or not, and that they're untrustworthy of these linesmen. Or maybe from our perspective as viewers, because we haven't seen the challenges as much, it just feels like they're challenging a lot, but that's kind of the usual. So that's just the brief summary. If you didn't know much about tennis, and now you know there's linesman and Hawkeye and now this new technology. Okay, you go.
So, back in the day, everybody knows how John McEnroe was famous for getting into fights with the chair umps for their calls, for the linesmen's calls, right? Linesmen are saying it was out over the line and not in, and John McEnroe would be like, are you kidding me? And he would really challenge them, saying how can you make that call? So apparently, Hawkeye technology first came out around 2002, but it looks like it wasn't used actually on the courts till 2005 or 6. And I'm reading something that in September 2004, in a 2-6, 6-4, 6-4 quarterfinal loss to Jennifer Capriati, Serena Williams was the victim of 4 obviously blown calls, some by line judges and others by the chair umpire, including one of the most audacious overrules in tennis history on a ball well inside the line. And that was just in the decisive 3rd set. And Hawkeye, please, commentator John McEnroe said at one point during the match, this is getting ridiculous. So, that was sort of sparked the conversation for a need to use technology. Technology had been used in other sports like football, like instant replay and things like that. And it really, for tennis, just one call can make the difference in not only the point, the game, the set, but the whole entire match. And it's, when you think about the speed that these balls are coming out, some of the serves are almost 130 miles an hour. How, it's very hard, even with all these trained linesmen, to really be able to accurately see if the ball was in or out. So, the Hawkeye, the thing is that when they totally use it at a tournament, the players are not allowed to challenge it at all. And then you have to think, well, is technology 100% accurate? But in other cases, like when you watch the French Open, which is played on clay, I don't know how they can tell if the ball is in or out.
Well, that's something different because I should have mentioned this when I was giving my overview, but they only use Hawkeye and all that technology on grass and hard courts. Clay courts, they're like, there's a mark. So, always when I'm watching clay tournaments, see them question a call, they make the chair umpire get out of their chair and come and look at the spot, but how do they know which one is which? Like, that's the biggest thing is then they start arguing about which it is.
You're talking about a soft surface to begin with, clay, and there's a million different dents in the clay and spots, and how after a ball is hit at 100-something miles an hour and the chair ump gets up, not to mention this is completely disrupting the match and taking time, and they're like pointing down in the ground and fighting over how the hell do you know which is the right mark?
And how can you really tell? Like, I feel like clay needs to step up and get Hawkeye. They need to really it's like there's I just don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. They need to up their technology.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's like crazy because a ball will be called in and there's such a tiny sliver, millimeter of a that's actually in, but they'll call it in. But they can do that with the technology. Now, again, is the technology 100% accurate? We don't know, but at least it's way more.
I don't know why you're questioning the technology.
It's way more reliable. It's so much more reliable than the human eye.
I think it's 2022, and I think we can say the technology is accurate.
Or at least way more reliable. It's going to be.
Yes. I just, once in a while, I think it was the last tournament Nick Kyrgios was in, when he was, serving the ball, by accident you could hear fall, and I think someone just by accident pressed something in the control room, but then, of course, he got, a first serve. Just, once in a while something like that happens, but I think the technology should be reliable, and we shouldn't question the technology. I do feel my opinion is we need to get rid of the linesman and just do the entirety of Hawkeye and everything. Because I even see in Wimbledon, I saw a match where this player hits this ball and they call it out and he's really thinking about it, but then he doesn't challenge it. And then they'll do this with Tennis Channel or ESPN or whatever. They'll show you the mark, in a little corner, and it will show that it was actually in and that he should have questioned it. And so it's because sometimes especially after a player has challenged before and then got it wrong, it makes them not want to challenge the next time.
Right, because they only have 3 challenges.
Yeah, and it just makes them think maybe, the person is right.
Just remind me, in a tiebreaker, do they get extra challenges? How does that work?
Yeah, they get, let's say you go into a tiebreaker and you still have 3 challenges, you would then have 4 challenges.
Oh, so you get an extra one. And if you've used up your 3, so it becomes 4 total. So the other thing I wanted to ask you is, do you think that sometimes players use the challenge as just a moment to gather themselves? So let's say they've not been playing well, or their opponent is really beating them. Do they sometimes call something that's questionable and ask
Absolutely
for a ruling just so they have a second to sort of regather themselves?
No, because I feel like if a player was not doing well and they hit the ball out and then try to challenge it, they probably know that it's going to be out, and then that's an even worse hit. I do see sometimes when players are I see more so when players are really close, let's say they have break point and then the ball is out, they'll challenge it because they're I really wanted to win that point, maybe there's a chance. But I think players know, sometimes when there's, maybe they are, if they're so down, they're okay, maybe this will give me, hope. But I don't think it's a time when they're I need a breather, so I'm just going to challenge it to, waste time. I don't think any players feel that way. And I know you keep saying it's disruptive.
Disruptive.
I don't know if it's necessarily disruptive to the game, but I think it's more, it does take a more mental note where, like, if you challenge a call and you're wrong, it does kind of get into your head. But let's say you challenge the call and you're right, it gives you a little bit of confidence. It gives you a little boost. So I don't think it's destructive to the game necessarily.
Disruptive.
That's what I said.
But I mean, just like it kind of, so if you're in a rhythm in a game, like once you get into that rhythm, it kind of disrupts that rhythm.
I don't see that.
But I'm saying if you have the technology,
these tennis players, they're so professional that a changeover, like, they just go back into it. And let's say there's like a medical timeout, and we'll do another episode about changers. And so, but if there's a medical timeout, they'll like go and like, jog and pace and just make sure they're in the rhythm. Changeovers, they sit down, they take their time. It doesn't take them out of the rhythm. I think the challenge, it doesn't take them out of the rhythm. And they don't do it just to get it like a second later. I really think challenges are just because people think that their ball was in or that ball was out. Okay. And I wish, sadly, when I play at college, we don't have, not only do we not have linesmen or umpires. Oh, sorry. Well, I should say is not only do we not have Hawkeye, we don't have linesmen or umpires. So many times I'm playing opponent and they call the ball out, but it's by their feet, so I gotta go with it.
Yeah, then you're on the honor system, and the honor system is not
and
good.
I think the thing about having linesmen or having these calls is because in college tennis, let's say you call a ball out, but then you play it, they're like, well, you played that ball. But like in professional tennis, sometimes when players, they are like, don't know if it's out or not. So then they like hit it, and because they just want to like, never know what the person's going to call it. And you can see sometimes when people think the ball is going to go out, but then they kind of hit it, but then somehow it's still in, and then they're not ready for the next shot. But anyway, we're talking more about technology versus linesmen. So because I said my opinion is that I think we should always have an umpire. There's always, always good there, someone to keep order, keep control. I think tennis would be very unorganized and all over the place if there was not an umpire to just monitor the system. But I personally think we need to get rid of linesmen and just have Hawkeye the whole wide round. What is your opinion and what is your thoughts?
So I'm actually in sync with you on this. I'm totally aligned. I actually think you need a chair umpire. I think there's different things that happen with medical timeouts and, where the audience gets unruly and just other, things that can happen on the court. So I don't think you can do away with the chair umps, but I think the Hawkeye is just more reliable, keeps the flow of the game. It's just, you don't question it then. I mean, if you need like linesmen just to have extra people on the court, that's fine, but I don't think they should be calling the faults. I really don't.
What do you mean extra people on the court?
Like, just, again, to keep things in order. I mean,
with the tournaments that use Hawkeye all around, like, having one umpire will keep things in order. The linesmen don't really do anything. They're like, literally, like, I'm watching, especially with Wimbledon, these linesmen are statues. They're like literally robots.
But don't they usually have even like more than a linesman? Like I usually see like a linesman here and like another person on the side.
When someone's receiving, there's like 3 linesmen there, and then there's like a linesman on side. I actually don't know how many linesmen, but it's a lot. It's a lot. And then especially at the beginning of the pandemic, before they had like the technology all around, they would have like 3 linesmen in the court, and it's like you can't cover that. It's just in general. We both believe that, linesmen need to go. But can I
ask you just like a related question on technology? Because the other thing is, before the pandemic, the ball kids would not only get the balls, but they would actually give the towels to the players, and then, which I thought was kind of gross to begin with, honestly, especially for some of the players who sweat a lot. So now, after the pandemic, this has changed, and the players get their own towels. However, the time on the serve clock, I don't believe has changed since then. And I just wonder if you think that the serve clock, which I think is a good thing, but whether extra seconds need to be added.
They get like 25 or 27 seconds, and I think that's honestly fine. I don't
But
think...
did they increase it once they had to get
I
their
don't
own
know.
towels?
But we're not talking about that right now. That's
Okay.
kind of separate.
Well,
that's
that
like
didn't
timing.
seem like it was enough for a whole episode, so I just wanted
What
to
are
bring
you
it up.
talking about? I had another follow-up question, then we were going to end this.
Okay.
Sorry to your viewers. 15 minutes is fine. My follow-up question was going to be, how long do you think it's going to be until every single tournament, including Wimbledon, including the clay tournaments, all just have the Hawkeye all throughout technology? Like, do you think one day we will get to that? Or do you think there's always going to at least be one tournament with Linesman, always clay courts are just going to stay the same?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that, Wimbledon is using it now to overturn calls, so they're sort of embracing the technology. But, I think the French Open, I think the clay is kind of the outlier there. So I would like to
Wimbledon's
say
the
yes.
outlier too, still having Linesman, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to say yes, but I think it's not something I see like that's going to change in 2023. Like, I think it's a couple of years away.
I think if there was going to be a tournament that still kept Linesman, it would be Wimbledon, because Wimbledon still makes people wear white. It still has a lot of the same things, traditions. So I think that if any tournament was still going to have Linesman, it would be Wimbledon. But my hope is one day they would get rid of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they never do, because it's Wimbledon. But anyway, comment below your thoughts about Linesman versus technology. We want to hear from you guys. Also, comment below other ideas for our episodes. We have a long list, and we did our first episode about Wimbledon. Remember to check it out. And we will probably do another episode once Wimbledon is coming to a close and talk about kind of this year at Wimbledon. But, comment other ideas. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'm Rel Klein.
I'm Debbie. Hey, Chad.
And thank you for listening. Bye.